Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, December 10th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Peach Bowl against Georgia is in exactly 3 weeks, 21 days. The game against Michigan in 350 days. The Heisman Trophy ceremony is today, and for the fifth time in the last 5 years, a Buckeye will be there as one of the finalists. Just like last year, C.J. Stroud will be in New York for the ceremony, and just like last year, Kevin Noon of Buckeye Huddle is here to talk to me about it. Kevin, I went back and looked, and I think, as far as I can tell, this is the first time that the same Buckeye has been a finalist in back-to-back years, or in any 2 years, as far as I can tell, since Archie Griffin won the trophy in 1974 and 1975. That's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, it really is when you sit there and you think about all the great players that have come through Columbus, Ohio, and played at Ohio State, and how we've watched the Heisman Trophy endure through the years, even with some changes in terms of locations and within New York City and everything else. And it just kind of shows where the quarterback position is at Ohio State right now, especially with somebody like C.J. Stroud, who, the last memory we have him on the field was not in the greatest of circumstances, even though he didn't necessarily play a terrible game, but it wasn't enough for the Buckeyes to get over the hump. But, he's certainly looking to do better than his fourth place finish last year, and hopefully Desmond Howard will keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting to see whether anyone gets sassy again this year. That did not go over real well last year, so we'll have to we'll see how the TV broadcast plays out on Saturday night. Stroud is, whether he finishes fourth or not, he's certainly not the favorite to win the award this year. That would be Caleb Williams. He's a pretty heavy betting favorite right now. He would just be the second Pac-12 player to win it since Reggie Bush in 2005. The other one, of course, being Marcus Mariota in 2014. What makes Caleb Williams the front runner right now?
Well, I mean, he certainly performs really well in big games, and maybe you can sit there and say that wasn't the case in the game with Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. He was hurt in that game. He still looked like at some points that he was going to help them by gutting it out, but it just wasn't meant to be in terms of that game. But he is somebody who can create. He gets out there, he scrambles, he prolongs plays, he's able to find a wealth of weapons with what USC has managed to amass under Lincoln Riley. Plus, the mobility is very good with him. So I mean, he is a true dual threat quarterback. Now, on the negative side, he's a bit brash, a bit cocky, and maybe that might turn some people off. But there's no denying his athleticism. And in a year where it really felt like nobody wanted to win the Heisman, he did the best that he could to try and grasp onto the brass ring and hold on for dear life. But I mean, with his last, with the last image we have of him, crying after the end of the Pac-12 championship game, I mean, people were still looking beyond that for somebody else who might step into that role, but nobody did.
And, this is he fits the mold of a Heisman winner in that he is a quarterback who plays for Lincoln Riley. I just was going through back and looking at how many Lincoln Riley players, or specifically quarterbacks, have been Heisman finalists, and Baker Mayfield did it, it looks like 3 years in a row. Kyler Murray in 2018, Jalen Hurts in 2019. I mean, that is a program that has put some guys in the in that Heisman conversation, and then now Riley going out to USC. Again, another Lincoln Riley quarterback going to the Heisman ceremony and potentially winning it. That's not the norm, putting a guy there every year like Ohio State has seemed to, like Lincoln Riley has seemed to, because the guy projected to finish second, at least in the betting odds right now, is Max Duggan of TCU, and the Horned Frogs have only had 2 top 3 finishers ever. Davey O'Brien, who they then named the Davey O'Brien Award after, he won it in 1938. And then a guy named Jim Swink, a running back, finished second behind Ohio State's Howard Hopalong Cassidy in 1955, and that's it. So, having a Heisman finalist is, basically an annual event for Ohio State at this point, or for Lincoln Riley's guys at this point, but this feels like this is a really big deal for TCU to have Max Duggan there.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget, Max Duggan was not the starter at the beginning of the season. He came in for an injured quarterback and really ran with it. But I think once again, it's kind of the what have you done for me lately type of moment. And yes, TCU came up short in the Big 12 championship game, but no fault of Max Duggan's. But I challenge a lot of people out there to say that they were watching TCU at the quarter mark, the third mark of the season, the halfway mark of the season. I don't think they were, but just the efforts that he put together in that Big 12 championship game, maybe a couple of other games down the stretch as people were becoming a little bit more aware of what TCU was doing as one of the lone undefeated teams at that time. Very impressive, and certainly with him winning the Davy O'Brien Award, and the Davy O'Brien connection right there certainly means a whole heck of a lot. So it's going to be a party in TCU in Fort Worth, regardless of the outcome, and it seems like he'll come just this close.
Yeah, I think Ohio State fans are used to making the college football playoff, having a Heisman finalist. That's just sort of almost an every year thing. That is, first time in college football playoff history that TCU has gotten in, and first time since 1955 they've had a guy in New York for the Heisman. So that is a very, very big and very unique deal for TCU. So, and then the third guy going up against Stroud is the same guy who he's going to be going up against exactly to the minute, 3 weeks from the start of tonight's ceremony. That is Stetson Bennett of Georgia. He is someone whose stats don't really match up with the other finalists, and then, unless you want to get to the win-loss column, and then he's kind of head and shoulders above everyone else.
Yeah, I don't know if this is one of those Lifetime Achievement Award nominations. Obviously the four finalists are the top four vote getters, so this isn't wildcatting on the Heisman committee's part and saying, well, we're just going to throw this kid a bone. He finished in the top four in voting, so it is what it is. 20 touchdowns against 6 picks, 68% passer. Had moments where he was asked to do a lot, had other moments where he was asked to be a game manager. His team wins, so there's something to be said about that. Is he the best? Is it this the case of the best player on the best team? Well, Georgia very well may be the best team, but I question if Stetson Bennett is the best player on that team, because the best player on that team plays on the other side of the ball. And I'm not even sure if he's the best player on the offensive side of the ball when you look at somebody like Brock Bowers, who goes and wins the Mackey Award for the nation's top tight end, beating out Notre Dame's Michael Mayer. I'm a little confused by that one, but we know that Heisman voting can be very regional, and I think that Stetson Bennett probably got about every vote out of the Southeast.
Well, and, that was going to be my next thing, is you look at this is 4 different conferences in 4 different parts of the country. You've got C.J. Stroud and the Big Ten and the Midwest. You've got Stetson Bennett and the SEC and the Southeast. You've got Max Duggan and kind of the Plains and the Big 12. And then you've got Caleb Williams and the Pac-12 and the West Coast. And this is a vote that tends to be fairly regional. If you were an SEC voter, you are probably putting an SEC player on your ballot at some point, and Stetson Bennett certainly has the name recognition. Everyone knows who Stetson Bennett is and who he plays for and what he did last year and where his team is this year. So yeah, it does feel like there is a certain regional element to all of that. And they have already released, the top 4 will be announced Saturday night in New York, but they've already released the guys who are not finalists, guys who were 5th through 10th on that list, and that included 4 more quarterbacks, 8 quarterbacks total out of 10 for the most outstanding player in all of college football. It's too bad other positions aren't eligible, isn't it? And then 2 running backs. So 8 quarterbacks and 2 running backs are voted the 10 most outstanding players in college football. Must have been a bad year for line play and secondary play and linebacker play and...
Absolutely. When you look at this list, and the thing is that we get all of this bluster about who got snubbed and who got snubbed. I think the question sometimes has to be how many players the Heisman Trust wants to bring in. Because obviously you don't want to bring in 5 if 5 is like 1/5 of the votes of 4, and you don't want to bring in 4 if 4 is 1/5 of the votes of 3. So you have to kind of look and see where the line cuts off. But Blake Corum at 7, the Michigan running back who gave it a go against Ohio State, played about a series and just wasn't able to do it. And Bijan Robinson, the one-time Ohio State heavy lean, we'll just say, who ended up at Texas, he finishes 9th. Both of them had great seasons. Both of them had a lot of outcry that they should be Heisman finalists, but they weren't. So, it's funny because some people want to change the Heisman system. Some people want to purge the voting rolls. But I mean, it all comes down to where the numbers shake up at the end of the year. But you sit there and you look at Bryce Young, last year's winner, finishing 6th. It just shows how hard it is to win it in back-to-back years. But maybe there'll be special consideration just due to margin of loss. A red-faced Nick Saban will get out there and tell us that close losses mean more than anything else, and so on and so forth. But rounding out some of the others in the top 10, Hendon Hooker of Tennessee finished 5th. Michael Penix, the one-time Indiana quarterback who's now at Washington, finished 8th. And then Drake May, the talented quarterback at UNC, despite everybody saying that he was going to transfer, which he's not going to transfer, he rounds out the top 10 at 10.
And, I think the two that would really kind of annoy me there are two people who were among the most outstanding players, certainly in the nation, and then they got hurt. Hendon Hooker and Blake Corum. It feels like those two guys probably should be there. Is it fair to punish guys for getting hurt? I think that to me makes this a little bit too much of a what have you done for me lately, because Blake Corum was absolutely almost a lead pipe cinch lock to be a Heisman finalist, and then gets hurt against Illinois and misses the most of the Ohio State game and all of the Purdue game. His stats still look pretty good. That to me is pretty, that to me is a pretty egregious miss. But everyone's going to vote for their one person in their region, and so Hendon Hooker misses because Stetson Bennett is still playing, and Blake Corum misses because C.J. Stroud is still playing. And would Michael Penix have been a finalist if Caleb Williams was not playing? Yeah, maybe. I mean, that feels like that's kind of how that goes. But
do you think that sometimes people defensively vote? I mean, this is my guy or whatever, and I want to. And I'm talking subconsciously, mind you. It's like, this is the guy I'm voting for. This is my number one. I should probably spread my vote out across the nation and make sure that 2 and 3, because you put 3 guys on your ballot. My 2 and 3 are from other regions or whatever. So do people just unknowingly kind of try to spread their votes out to sit there and not look like that I'm Captain Midwest. I'm going to vote Stroud, Corum, and whoever, just to represent the region. I think people kind of try to shy away from it. The only thing people do not shy away from is voting all quarterback, apparently.
Yes, the correct Midwest ballot this year, of course, would be Stroud, Corum, and Rutgers punter Adam Korsak. I don't know who else. I don't know how else you could round that ballot out. So we will all be watching on Saturday night and see if C.J. Stroud does, in fact, win the Heisman. But either way, for the first time since Archie Griffin in 1974 and 1975, a Heisman finalist for two different times for Ohio State for C.J. Stroud. Pretty darn good. Also pretty darn good. C.J. Stroud and Stetson Bennett, whether or not they win the Heisman, they are certainly going to be playing for the national championship, playing in the semifinals in the Peach Bowl on December 31st. Kevin and I will be there along with Tony Gerderman. We'll have complete coverage in the lead up to that game, in the down from Atlanta, starting about 5 days before that game. We'll have lots of interviews, practice reports, all that kind of good stuff. And then, of course, lots of stuff in the lead up to that as well. We'll have plenty of Ross Fulton breakdowns of some of the schematic stuff. Michael Pettit just wrote a really, really interesting article about the Georgia offense at BuckeyeHuddle.com. You can sign up today and get a look at that. He did a real deep dive on the Bulldogs, kind of looking at this year, even going back to last year a little bit. Lots of really good information in there. And then, if you have questions, you can talk to Michael, you can talk to Ross, you can talk to our recruiting guys, you can talk to Tony and Kevin and me on our huddle board at BuckeyeHuddle.com. All you have to do is sign up to become a member. It is less than 50 cents a day. $12.99 a month, Kevin? Is that right? $12.99? Yes, $12.99 a month. Yes, that is, you can either get 2 things and a drink at Taco Bell, or you can get a month of the best Buckeye coverage, team coverage, recruiting coverage, X's and O's coverage. That month now includes the national championship game. If Ohio State is there, you can be there at BuckeyeHuddle.com with us. Sign up today, try it for a month, or even better yet, ask a family member to get it for you for Christmas. It is a fantastic deal. We'll give you a year full of insight, analysis, and entertainment, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.